The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.
Today I'm at Buckfast Abbey, and I am looking at the Hairshirt of Sir Thomas More as we know him, but here he is known as St. Thomas More. I'm going to read a little bit from the card here because I think they say it so well. Thomas More opposed the king's separation from the Catholic Church, refusing to acknowledge as supreme head of the Church of England and the annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. After declining to sign and take the oath of supremacy, he was convicted of treason. At his execution, he delivered his famous words, "I die the king's good servant, but God's first." He was beheaded in July of 1535. Now, this hair shirt is one that he wore to do penance, and it was given to his adopted daughter, Margaret Giggs, the night before his execution. Margaret then gave it to Thomas's daughter, Margaret Roper. Looking at this today, anyone who practices the Catholic faith can feel the importance of this shirt and where we are at an abbey in England. I can't help but get a little bit choked up standing here thinking about what this represents to Tudor history itself. It's quite amazing to have this opportunity to be here today. And if you are in the area, I highly recommend you come to Buckfast Abbey and check out Sir Thomas More, St. Thomas More's hair shirt. And here we have is a closer look at the hair shirt. As I said previously, it was made of goat hair. And you can almost see the fabric now and how itchy it must have been for him to wear. You know, when I went to Catholic Church, we would confess our sins and be given penance, but I could never imagine wearing something like this as a way of doing penance. It must have been quite uncomfortable. I am now standing in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel of Buckfast Abbey with Mark, church steward, and he is going to enlighten us a little bit about the stained glass window that is behind us in this area, this beautiful area that we are standing in. Before we get to that, I really would love it if you could tell my audience more about this abbey in general.
Well, the Abbey is a remarkable place, really, a remarkable testament to the endeavours of modern and ancient monks. There was a church first founded here in 1018 by King Canute.
Oh.
And that very shortly became, by the 12th century, a Cistercian monastery. And an abbey roughly the same size as this was built there then.
Wow.
In 1539, a very momentous year in British history, of course, the dissolution of the monasteries occurred, and Henry VIII's men came upon Buckfast and demanded that the monks left. They were pensioned off, and it's reported that the king's men carted off from the southwest over 1.5 tons of precious gold and treasures, and took back to the Tower of London. And the treasures, the incredible treasures then, the pre-Reformation treasures, and many of them were just melted down and added to the king's coffers.
More money for the king, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he Henry VIII was born a Catholic, and it's interesting that the whole history of how the Church of England was formed. And I would like to believe in his dying hours he was still a Catholic.
Hope so.
Right.
I wouldn't want to face his God
right.
without knowing. Yeah. So this place then became a ruin, and by 1770 the site was completely cleared, and there was nothing here, just greensward, and the stones were used to build a manor house next door.
Okay.
And that mansion house then became the home of some private people until 1882, when the doctor that was living there decided to sell the land and the house. And he decided it'd be nice if the land could be then returned to the religious community. He advertised it in the Tablet, which was the church newspaper, and a party of monks from Germany and France who were fleeing persecution on the continent actually bought the land and moved in 1882. Now, they moved into the manor house, which became their monastery. And they had a chapel in there, and the tale is that they were digging a vegetable patch in the ground here, and their spades struck foundations, and they came up with the astonishing idea of rebuilding this abbey, which they did. The monks that did so, there were just 6 of them, believe it or not, and only one of them was a trained stonemason. He was sent over to France to learn the trade for 18 months, and he came back. He gave their skills to his brothers. Then over 30 years, they built this astonishing modern abbey. So it's only 86 years old, this building. And this part of the abbey that we're in now was completed in the 1960s. It was an add-on. The monks wanted a private chapel of their own. The abbey became too successful in a way. Many members of the public were coming and visiting, and the monks wanted a more private space to pray. And so the idea of the Blessed Sacrament Chapel was created. Now, this is a kaleidoscope of colour.
It really is.
It's a masterpiece of stained glass. The glass style is called dalle de verre, which is French for slabs of glass. And it was a style of stained glass that was first developed in France in the 1930s. And one of our monks, Charles Norris, took it upon himself to learn this style, and he became possibly the 20th century's greatest exponent of it. And this is his work that you see around you. It took him 3 years to do this glasswork. He was heavily inspired by medievalists, and I think you can see that in the face of Christ, looking something like an illuminated manuscript.
It does.
And also a heavy influence was the Turin Shroud as well. And you can see many of the details there. His choice of colour, the way that the glass itself is made, he bought in the glass. It comes in slabs about the size of an old telephone directory, and he would cut it into pieces, and then he took a hammer, and every single piece of glass that you see, he chipped around the edge to refract and break up the light. So every single piece you can see, that's happened to. It's then set into a wooden frame, and he poured in a mixture of epoxy resin and cement dust, and that's the matrix that holds it all together.
You know, you said he made it in 3 years, like that was a long time, but I expected much longer than 3 years.
It's quite something. Now, something else that's astonishing is that before he made the windows, I mean, he was a truly accomplished artist. He was a very gifted artist. He studied at the Royal College of Art before he became a monk at Buckfast at the age of 21, and he painted the window first. So we have that painting is kept in our archives. And he'd literally paint every single piece of glass before it was put into place. Astonishing eye for detail.
Yes, this is a work of art.
You're here in the best time of year, by good fortune as well. This is June, and it's the month where the sunlight floods in from the east in the morning, and Christ's face is lit up.
It is.
To be here at 8:30 in the morning is quite profound. And I know yourself, Rebecca, you've experienced the kind of humbling nature of this space. It's a very prayerful, very, very contemplative space that brings deep emotions out of people. I'm sure you'll agree.
It really does. Yeah, it made me quite emotional earlier, and I did not expect that, especially not when I woke up this morning. First, I didn't know I was coming here. So now that I'm here.
So this is quite a wonderful surprise.
It is. And like I said, it's my first time in England, and I expected to be emotional the first time I saw a historic building, but this is really the first time since being in England that I was literally moved to tears, and I couldn't stop them. And this, I just can't recommend coming to this place enough for anybody who's watching right now. This place is so peaceful, but I also feel, I don't even know how to describe what I feel while I'm here. It just feels like I belong here.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mark.
The Tudors Dynasty Podcast.